I think most everybody that was meant to be here is here. So I would like to kick off our town hall meeting, which is being hosted by Kathy Kennedy and myself. Kathy will speak shortly regarding her district and her committees. I just want to do a little housekeeping in the beginning. It would be good if most of you could mute your microphones until it's time to speak so that we don't have any feedback coming in. Also, it's good to know that this town hall meeting is being live streamed on both Kathy and mine Facebook pages. There are a number of features in, for those of you who are not, have not worked with Zoom before, there's a number of features that you can access. One, you can raise your hand to be recognized through the features here on Facebook. Kathy, what's that under?
You can do it under chat, or you can do it under reactions, and you can just raise your hand.
Okay, so just access chat or reactions, and you can raise your hand and our moderator will pick it up. You can type a question to the moderator and she will bring it forward during the town hall. I just want to say that for Kathy and I, this is our first Zoom town hall meeting. We've become more familiar with Zoom legislatively because a lot of our committee meetings are being held through Zoom and our caucus meetings are being held through Zoom. But this is the first time we've had a meeting where we will be interacting with the public by way of Zoom. So hopefully it'll be smoothly run and we won't have any complications with that. I'll start off by just going through the committees that I'm part of in the General Assembly. I am part of the Energy and Technology Committee. I'm actually the ranking member on that committee. So I do have a lot of input with regards to leadership. I'm a member of the Appropriations Committee, which, as you know, is extremely important in allocating funds and various committee work, making sure that all the bills and the funds needed are gone through the Appropriations Committee. And I'm also a member of the Veterans Committee, which now makes my 6th year on that committee. I'm very familiar with any bills that are coming through the Energy and Technology Committee, but because we're at a point in the legislative process where many of the bills haven't come through the committees yet, they haven't been screened yet, and we haven't seen final language on the bills, it's very, very difficult to speak to some bills that haven't come through the process yet. But we'll do the best we can to try to answer your questions and take care of some of the concerns you might have. With that, I'll turn it over to Kathy Kennedy.
Thank you, Charlie. And welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's great to have so many people on. I represent the 119th district, which is parts of Milford and Orange. This is my 2nd term, and I'm very proud to be serving all the constituents that reside in the 119th. I sit on the Education Committee, Public Health Committee, Appropriations, and I'm the ranking member on legislative and executive nominations. As you can well imagine, there's a number of bills that have been filed. The date to file bills by each of the legislators was last Friday. For those who may or may not know, we are in the long session. And this is the year that during the long session, we will address the budget and of course, all the bills that come through us. There will be, I know in public health, Well, before I go any further, I just want to let people know that we have received questions in advance, and we will be reading those and answering those afterwards. And also, as Charlie had mentioned, we'll be taking your questions. If you want to put them in the chat or send them through our email, we'll be happy to answer those, any questions you may have, or do our best to get the information for you if we don't have the answer tonight. So as I said, I serve on appropriations. Appropriations is the one committee I've only had one meeting on, and Charlie and I are both on that this year. And that was our introductory meeting. We have not seen anything because we don't expect to see the governor's budget until around the first week of February. After the first week of February, then our work will begin, and we will do our due diligence, examining every aspect of the budget. But most importantly, we will hear from the various agencies that are a part of the budget. Let's see.
I just can I interject?
Yeah, absolutely, Charlie. Go ahead.
I received an email from somebody from West Haven and said, why is this just Orange and Milford? Why not West Haven? If there is anybody on this call from West Haven, let it be known that Kathy only represents West Haven, Orange and Milford. I do represent West Haven, Orange, and Milford. So because we share Orange and Milford together, this town hall was designed to reach out to constituents in Orange and Milford. And I will be doing a separate town hall for West Haven with other members of the West Haven delegation. So please don't feel like you were slighted. And hopefully if you're here, we will still answer your questions today.
So Charlie, if you're up to it, I don't really have any other remarks. I hope that everyone is well. These are certainly trying times, very difficult times for everyone with COVID-19. This is nothing anyone's ever been through that I can recall. And we are doing the best that we can to get through this. It's a very, very different legislative year for all of us, especially for me, just being my second term. I'm learning to navigate and work through Zoom and do meetings through Zoom. I just want everyone to know that what's most important to me is that your voices are heard. If there are bills that you want to speak on, it's very, very important that you write to the committee. You can send email if you go on the CJA website and click on the committee where the bill is that you have interest, or let me know what your feelings on any particular bill. So with that, I would say, Charlie, do we want to turn it over to some of the questions?
Yep,
or
let's get to it.
I'm looking at the questions right now. If someone wants to raise their hand if they have a question, otherwise we can go directly into, hold on, I'm just looking to see if anyone has a hand up. I don't see any hands up. Well, I will, and I don't know if this gentleman is on, but we did get one question, was regarding ranked choice voting, and if it was a possibility of it coming up. I don't sit on either judiciary or general law, so I haven't had a chance to look through and see if that has come up, if anyone is familiar with it. Ranked choice allows people to vote for multiple candidates. I do see a hand, so I'm going to leave that. Ashley Tracy, if you will unmute yourself.
Tracy,
how are you?
Good, Kathy. Jeff Brenzel, I was the one that submitted that question, but I'll wait if you want to go to Tracy.
No,
first.
Actually, you can continue.
Okay. Well, I'll be brief. Obviously, this past year has seen enormous divisions, not just on candidates and policies, but on elections themselves. Each party, understandably, to me, has very deep disagreements about what needs attention, on the elections. But I think, along with many others, that it's critical that we look for common ground where we can find it. And ranked choice voting is something which has gotten a lot of attention on both sides of the aisle. And I just wanted to ask, and I didn't know Charles would be here. Charles, it's nice to meet you.
Same here.
I'm doing some work for Voter Choice Connecticut on ranked choice voting, and I wanted to ask you, Kathy, but also you, Charles, do you feel like that you're knowledgeable about ranked choice voting, and would you be supportive of a study bill, which would be a bill to form a task force to look at the possibilities for using ranked choice voting in Connecticut?
You want me to start, Charlie?
Sure.
The question went to me. I actually did not know as much about it when you first wrote to me. There certainly are many pros and cons to it. I haven't seen any language to the effect of it, or even that a task force yet would be formed. But I would wonder about any kind of a number of things. I did take some notes on it, and I'm also taking notes. So if I'm looking down, I apologize. I'm taking notes as each of you speak. But I would say that there's a lot of, it would be management, how it would be management, how it, the city clerk's office, would it require more staffing? Would it be an overly complicated process for the voters? And also, of course, with any type of new bill, that would there be any kind of a fiscal note that then would be passed down to the constituents? Charlie?
And Jeff, I want to thank you for that question. I think ranked voting came up in 2019 in the General Assembly.
That's right.
It is a concept that would have appeal across many people, because of the idea of ranking your choices downfield if you had 4 or 5 candidates or what have you. And the idea of doing a study to bring out the pros and cons, to educate the public as well as educate the legislature on, the good points and bad points. I don't think I would have a problem with doing a study. From my own personal research into ranked voting, I do see some problems with it. One of the problems would be if you were to rank, say, 3 of the 5 choices, and it turned out that the 2 top choices were not in your rank, then your vote would be cast aside. And in some studies that have been done, one particular one in San Francisco, I believe there were about 13,000 votes cast, and 9,000 votes were eventually discarded, and the person won with 4,000 votes. So the question would need to be asked is, if 9,000 votes are discarded and 4,000 votes forms the majority vote, then have all the votes been heard? So I would have a concern with the number of discarded votes. I would have a concern with whether or not the 2-party system is actually being enhanced through this type of voting. And I would be concerned as to the weight given to the extreme end of each party through this type of voting. So I think the study is necessary. I think it's something that we would need in order to make an intelligent decision. Good.
Look, those are all thoughtful, thoughtful comments, and I don't want to take up, over much of the time of the town hall to, engage in a presentation on ranked choice voting. But but you've certainly raised in both cases a number of important points. As you probably know, there's a great deal of movement afoot on this around the country.
Absolutely, yeah.
Maine is now a ranked choice voting state. Alaska has gone ranked choice voting. There are about 20 major cities. And the research so far has been that logistically, it's relatively easy to implement. I understand our voting machines here in Connecticut would be quite capable of, that is, they are already software ready to handle a ranked choice election. The voters are very receptive to it. They don't find it difficult, you know, in terms of of all the places that have gone ranked choice since 2004, and it's been used for over 100 years in other countries. And then on the effect of, you know, you mentioned the exhausted ballot question, Charles. That would be an extremely unusual case, but the ballots aren't thrown away. I mean, even in a case where a person ranks 3 choices and none of their 3 choices makes it into the you know, into the final round or the top 2, that's no different than someone casting a vote and it doesn't elect a candidate. They've cast a vote, and it certainly could have put one of their candidates into the top, you know, into the top 2 or the final round of voting. And then just a final note on the extreme ends of the party. This is actually one of the things that a lot of voters, on both sides, and I won't go into a complicated explanation, but a lot of voters on both sides are looking at the fact that ranked choice voting holds out a lot of promise for limiting the appeal of the extremes in both parties. Having candidates need to reach out to a wider group of voters, and extreme factions being much less prominent, particularly in primary campaigns. So in any case, you know, I hope that that you'll both find further reason to take a look at it. I'll send you a little material that I think is useful that we're trying to produce. But I appreciate being able to ask the question, and also appreciate the fact that you know, both of you are actually, you know, are obviously being thoughtful about it.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I really appreciate that. I just want to, are you signed in on 2 as Jeffrey and as Ashley Tracy, or?
No, I don't know.
I am as Jeffrey Brinzel.
There's
okay.
Ashley.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. Yep. I see it now. Thank you, Jeffrey. And please feel free to write to either of us at our emails. I see Tracy, Ashley Tracy, you have a question? Your hand raised. If you unmute.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good.
I'm not sure it's necessarily a question, but wanted to voice my opinion on something regarding the non-medical exemptions for the school immunizations. As you know, it was a very hot topic in 2019, and well, I'm in favor of keeping the non-medical exemption or the religious exemption. I'll go on record as that. And I think that it's obviously a very, I don't know if volatile is the right word, but a lot of people are interested. And so I'm a little concerned about the constituents being represented enough if it's only through Zoom or phone calls or things like that. I'm wondering if it needs to be postponed until we can, you know, get people there and to talk about it. Although this might, Todd, can you stop for a second? Sorry. He's on another call, so he doesn't even know what he's making noise. So it might allow some people to voice their opinions on Zoom, but I don't think it's going to give everybody an opportunity. And it might be more slanted to the people that, you know, easily have those like access to that. So I just wanted to see what you guys thought about that in terms of pursuing some of the more controversial topics without people being able to comment in person.
So actually, I know that at our public health meeting this past Monday, that was something that came up, and it was held until we could get more information on it. And one of the at length discussions we had was the fact that there will be a number of people that will want to testify on it. And we want to make sure, it's very, very important to me that everyone has the opportunity to testify on the bill. I'm getting a number of emails regarding it. We don't have, that bill was pulled and then put in, one of the senators put it in a different format, but it is a bill that is very controversial. I expect it. It could have a Zoom, when we took it up last year, or actually it was the year before, we were there, and you may have been there the whole time, but we were there for 26 hours. So we discussed it. I think over 900 people signed up. So I can imagine how many will sign up this time. But Tracy, we are working. I know that our caucus is working very diligently with the other side and telling them how important it is that we hear from our constituents, everyone, and everyone has the equal time to speak on it, particularly that one.
Also, Tracy, I would, Ashley, right? Okay, I would add that some folks probably wouldn't have time to go up to Hartford to testify in person, but the Zoom format may make it more possible for them to be able to log on through Zoom and be able to testify. So it might be, it might help people to testify. The other part is people are always encouraged to submit written testimony if they don't have the time to log on and Zoom in. Their written testimony is part of the permanent record and is read by the committee. And, you know, with regards to the subject itself, I guess you're just basically talking about a mandatory vaccination for those that would object on a religious basis. I think it's going to be controversial, and I would venture to say that I don't think it's a partisan issue. I think there'll be people on both sides of the aisle that would come down on supporting the religious exemption.
Yep. Okay, that's good to hear. And I think, yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you're going to give us both an opportunity. I mean, on Zoom, and making sure that everybody can speak to it. And I do appreciate there probably will be some people. I mean, certainly it's easier to get on Zoom than drive up to Hartford, and especially if you have young children, for the families that do. And on just another thing to comment on, and I think it goes along with this, I am definitely in favor of, I mean, I don't know where you guys stand, but less government. So like this particular thing to mandate a vaccine. And then I saw just something about how they want to write up legislation about price gouging during the pandemic and wanting the government to oversee unfair pricing. And to me, that's another overreach of government.
Well, Ashley, let's think about this. Would you like your fellow citizens to be paying much more than what they need to pay during the pandemic?
No, but I think that the market would correct itself very quickly. You know, once people see things that are available, or like my son, I presented this to my son, who's a senior in high school, and he's like, well, if you go to a store and you see that the hand gel is too expensive at that store, you decide not to buy the gel there and you go somewhere else. Yes, there's a short-term situation, but I think long-term, and hopefully not too long-term, things got turned around very quickly. The thought of government stepping in on prices, I don't know when they would get out. And how do they justify unfair? Like, how do they figure out unfair? So I think
in the obvious cases, you would probably want that to be shut down, because in the obvious cases where they're really way overboard and they're taking advantage of people, that shouldn't be allowed, especially when people are hurting in the situation they're in. But I do understand what you're saying is that if they're going to get in and set prices, then, you know, when are they going to get out? That's an absolute valid concern. And I don't think that's the intention of government to do that. Not in this state level anyways.
And if I could just add, so Tracy, it does sound like you've looked over some of the bills that were proposed. And I just wanted to just clarify, a number of the bills are just concept bills right now. So they just have a title and not necessarily the language in it yet. And then there may be some raised bills that have come through. But I do understand what you're saying about the price gouging, because, you know, right in the beginning, it was like toilet paper and paper towels were ridiculously priced. So I can understand that. So I appreciate your thoughts on that. And just for clarification, when I was talking about the bill for vaccinations, so the bill, the concept bill that came before us was very general. It just said vaccinations. That was held, so we didn't do anything with it. But we also asked at that same time, this bill of vaccinations, and it is the removal, it's not anything about a specific vaccination, that language that I've seen as yet, but what it is actually removing the religious exemption. That's what the bill wants to do, is remove that religious exemption. We asked to please hold this bill until possibly next year, so that anyone that really did, to make sure we didn't miss anyone, so that anyone could come up to the LOB, the Legislative Office Building, and speak to the bill, because it is that important to families and, you know, parents and, you know, moms and dads. So I just wanted to clarify that we did actually ask for it to be put off till next year. And Charlie can add into this as well, is that the bills we had talked about, that we'd be working in a bipartisan manner and deal with bills to have our economy recover from COVID-19, and also bills relating to the betterment, to move along from what we've lost during COVID-19. And we seem to have gotten really far away from that. And not necessarily, it's not public option, but a bill came out today where a senator proposed a bill, and this is to me a frivolous bill that just, I don't think it makes sense personally, but the bill proposed was to fine people if they didn't vote and they didn't have a valid reason. What's a valid reason? Who's going to ask? Do you have to get a doctor's note if you didn't, you know, and then who's going to enforce that bill? So that was just something that I just kind of caught my eye today. I just saw it today. Didn't see a lot of details on it yet, but so off the track a little bit, I think what you're asking for, Ashley, but I do really appreciate your questions. And because I do sit on public health, please feel free to send me an email or call me, and I am happy to keep you updated on where we go.
Thank you.
And just because a bill comes through the pipeline doesn't mean it's actually going to get called on the floor. A lot of these bills, like Kathy says, you know, once you realize what they're saying or trying to do, they're not going to see the light of day. Most bills, we only end up, out of the thousands of bills that get written each session, we only end up doing 150 to 200 bills. So I'd let you know in that regard anyways. We have any more hands up?
I'm looking, I don't see anybody.
Frank Masanti.
Go ahead, Frank.
I'll just ask, what is the plan for the budget this year?
To balance it?
The budget. I'm reading a thing, it says a $2.1 billion deficit.
Well,
there's some talk about some surplus actually. And so we don't really have all the numbers yet. Of course, the main purpose of the budget is to fund the programs that need to be funded. to balance it so that going forward, we mitigate any deficits that we have. But this is a long drawn out process, as Kathy indicated earlier. First, the governor has to submit his budget. Then usually the majority party and the minority party put together their own budgets. Those budgets get debated on the floor. The good points get married in together, and then the final bill gets debated and voted on. So this whole process usually ends up making the budgetary process the last thing that gets done in the session. We usually go right to the last day with that because of the complication involved and the number of line items. I mean, there's literally thousands of line items that have to be married together. And each department has to give their input as to, you know, what they need and what they're requesting, and that all has to be done due diligence through committees and subcommittees on the appropriation committee. So it's way too early to say right now what it's going to look like at the end of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. We do have a question that came in through the chat. Let me just get back to that, sorry. Question came in, is there proposed legislation this session for legalization of recreational marijuana, and what are your positions on it? Would you like to start, Charlie, or shall I?
You're gonna make me a negative Nelly, because
I'll start if you want, but that
I will
is
start off by saying that I absolutely supported palliative use of marijuana for medical reasons. I've stated before on this subject that for 50 years I've been teaching karate as my small business that I run when I'm not a legislator, and I've been teaching kids for 50 years, telling them not to put foreign substances into their bodies. And for me to come out and support recreational marijuana would be really against everything that I stand for. So I probably will be a no on that. Do I think that there's enough people in the legislation that if the bill comes before the General Assembly that it will pass? I think there's quite a will in the General Assembly of people that would support such legislation. Me personally, I think the jury's still out with what happens to the adolescent brain up to age 25 with the use of marijuana. Do I think the state needs to be saved on the backs of marijuana users because of the revenue it'll create? You know, I have to balance that with the cost to society. So I'm going to be right up front with everybody and tell them I'm a no on recreational marijuana.
And I just want to say thank you to the person that put this out there. This is a very sensitive piece of legislation that is likely coming through. I have not seen the bill yet. It'll probably go through several committees, judiciary, possibly law, possibly education, and haven't heard if it's going to come through public health. So that's just the path these bills can take at times. I can tell you my personal thoughts, but that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to listen to my constituents and what you think is the best. And I've been in on a number of calls, and there a lot of concerns have been expressed. I mean, will it help balance our budget? Will it? I'm not really sure. But then there's the concerns of, I learned on a call I was on recently that there's over 43,000 people in the state of Connecticut that use medicinal marijuana. And the question from one of the physicians that was on the call is, he questioned, would there continue to be enough if we legalize, if we make it legalize it. There's also questions to me about, have we looked at in bargaining contracts, various bargaining contracts of various unions throughout the state, where they get randomly drug tested. How will that work? Are we going to open up all these bargaining contracts? These are some of the questions I have on a stop. How is a police officer going to determine if someone's under the influence of marijuana? Are they going to test them? It's, you know, these are questions that I have not had the opportunity to pose as yet to the committees that this bill will go before. And then there's the, like Charlie was saying, that, you know, our young children, well, our young adults going to get their hands on marijuana. And it's not even just the smoking, it's the edibles. There's so many more of the products. So that's a concern. And mental health. And then also goes back to a lot of parents I've spoken with and meetings I've been in with here in Milford. We have Milford Prevention Council. And I hear from parents that their children started at a young age with maybe just drinking, maybe it was just beer, then maybe it was just a little bit of marijuana, but marijuana wasn't enough, and it continues up. So I have a lot of concerns about the passage of the legalization of recreational marijuana. I know it is only going to be a small amount, but then again, as I said, I haven't seen any details on the bill as yet. So if I were to say personally, for me, I probably wouldn't be necessarily in favor of it. I have to say that during the summer, this past summer, I was just going down the road, had my window open, a beautiful day, and I was like, what is that smell? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I thought to myself, oh my God, this could be something that is a new norm. And I'm not quite sure I'm ready for it, but like I said, I need to hear from my constituents on this matter and hear from the experts before formalizing my final opinion on it. So thank you to the caller for that question. I don't see, let me just check. I don't see any hands up as yet. Another question we have from the chat, I apologize, I have to look at my phone because that's where I'm getting from, is the writer says, I have serious questions with the COVID vaccine and why those of us in education and retail are not at the forefront in receiving the vaccine. We have been in the trenches for many, many months. And thank you for the question. That is actually a question that I brought to the attention of the Vaccination Advisory Committee. And they are looking at it. Teachers, we do expect teachers will be in the next phase. I asked personally why teachers weren't in right now, 1B. And I think a part of it had to do with supply. The supply that initially came into Connecticut, if you must, as you know, you get the first shot and then you get the second shot. And I think it was most important to make sure that we had enough. I think now dosages are coming in, the amount of vaccinations we're getting. So we're moving forward. And my understanding from being on the public health department and speaking with members of the Vaccine Advisory Commission that will move. So Charlie, did you want to add anything more onto that?
No, I mean, you sit on that committee and, you know, I get calls every day from people asking, you know, why they aren't considered part of first responders. For example, bus drivers association called me today. Be, you know, assured that the committee that makes the decision as to which group is eligible next is working with the governor's office. And we're in the 1B section right now, which is 75 and over. And soon it's going to go to 65 and over. And those individuals, I think, was it 25 to 64 who have comorbidities will be in the next group. They will probably entail about 600,000 Connecticut residents, those two groups. I think so far we've been through about 350,000 people. So we're close. When we get through those 3 groups, we'll be close to 1 million people vaccinated of the 3.2 million in the state. The rollout is slow, slower than we wanted it to be. It's a question of whether or not the vaccines are available to the distribution areas, and getting enough distribution areas open, and, you know, getting phone calls answered on a timely basis when people call and set up an appointment. Those are all logistical problems that the state committee is trying to work out to make sure we can have a timely rollout of the vaccine.
And the only thing I wanted to add on to that, if you know someone that is having trouble with the VAMs, getting through that, the recommendation I would give to Milford residents is call the local Milford Health Department. I believe it's on my website, my Facebook page. Call them directly, or you can call 211 and they can help you get through. Because I've assisted in the last few days a number of individuals that are over 75 that were having trouble, and whether it was a computer glitch, maybe they had an older computer, but they were getting kicked out and not getting into the system. So the Milford Health Department in the last day just put a number and a link to sign up to get on there. So I just want to make sure people are aware of that. I see 2 hands up. Mark, I saw yours go up first. Winnick, welcome.
Okay, I apologize. I couldn't get my hand up fast enough when you were talking about the previous topic on the recreational marijuana. But I just want to give a brief comment on something that I've experienced. I know it's quite common, even though it's illegal. There's a neighbor across the street from me that during the summer months, I can smell the marijuana wafting over into my yard. And I could stand outside my garage and they're about 50, 60 yards away from my house. I could smell it. And it's pretty strong. You know, everybody talks about secondhand smoke from cigarettes. I don't think they talk that much about secondhand smoke from marijuana. I know this is a tough issue because people are doing it anyway. So do you just make it legal for small amounts? But then if you do make it legal, what's to stop somebody from stretching? You know, if they can have a small amount, why can't somebody, you know, somebody will say, okay, I can have 2 times that amount or 3 times that amount. That's my only concern. And I know it's a tough issue. I mean, you know, right now, if you smell marijuana, I guess technically you could call the police and say, hey, somebody's smoking out in their backyard. It's illegal. They shouldn't be doing it unless it's for medicinal purposes. But again, I just wonder if you make it legal for recreational marijuana, will people just take more liberty?
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your comments, and you bring up some valid points. Charlie, did you have anything? Because we have another hand raised, I see. I don't know your first name. It just says iPad. If you want to take Anne. Hi, Anne. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I like the conversation that's going on right now. I had actually am the person that put in the chat the question about the COVID. You know, I have concerns. I work for the school system, and it's not just teachers, it's custodial staff. It is paraeducators. We have speech therapists. We also have some of the staff that are at different schools. Our superintendent has been great. She's always keeps us updated. You know, she's done a great job. There's a lot of us that work on the buses also, bus drivers, bus monitors. Some of us can't stay in one cohort all the time because we have staffing issues. And for people that work in the grocery and retail, I just feel like, you know, our group is the backbone. We are the backbone. The retailers and the grocery clerks, those are the ones keeping people fed. We're the ones keeping your child educated. But I feel like we're always being squeezed out. And, you know, I just don't think it's right that we've been squeezed out again and not given the opportunity to get the vaccine, whether we choose to or not. And this is my opinion. It's just, you know, upsetting me a little bit. But I love my job. I love the kids. I love the staff I work with. I would just like to see our governor know that we are important. We are important.
I thought teachers were recently included in 1B.
Nope.
No?
Nope. We were told no, that we were set back. Now, other school systems, I guess some staff were able to get the vaccine. And like I said, our superintendent has been great. She's kept us updated as far as academics go, everything. But I just feel that, like I said, not just education, bus drivers, retail people, grocery clerks, we're like the forgotten. I feel like we're forgotten and we get pushed back.
Yeah, well,
we're important.
You weren't forgotten because our caucus did write a letter to the governor asking to include the teachers in the next phase. And for some reason, I thought that it did go through, but if it didn't, I feel for you because, like you said, you are in the trenches with our kids, and I know that a lot of kids don't show the symptoms. And a lot of the teachers who are in the age group or have the morbidities that they're concerned with are really at risk. And so I support you 100%. I really think the teachers and our frontline service workers really should be getting vaccinated as quickly as possible. And I'll keep advocating for that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
And Anne, as Representative Ferraro said, as a caucus, we wrote to the governor right away as soon as we realized that teachers weren't included in those first phases. It's my understanding that teachers will be starting to receive vaccinations the second week of February, around that early part of February. What I wasn't clear on is if you're setting them up yourselves or if through your district, the district will start putting those through. So that's the one clarifying thing you'd have to get from your district. I just asked that question of the advisory, the COVID vaccination advisory, COVID just yesterday, and I didn't get a response, but I was on a call with Yale last night. And very interestingly, and you probably really won't like this very much, but I kind of was taken a little bit aback. And one of the things that they had explained is they felt that teachers, because of the protocols that were in place, and that the teachers could make it to this next phase. That's what was part of it, because of the cleansing, oh, I'm sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. But that was part of the reason. But teachers are, but what's I'm not clear on, and whether you've heard yet, is if you in fact yourself are signing yourself up, or if your district is starting to sign up. So I would check that out with your district.
Okay, and our district has been very good. I mean, like I said, our superintendent's been great, HR's been great, and I don't think they have anything to do with actually what's happening. They're not, they're not in control. No. My question is, and like I said, I'm not just talking about education. I'm speaking for friends that work in the grocery stores, that work in retail, the bus drivers. The bus drivers have different groups of children on the bus, students.
And my understanding is that everyone involved with the education, all the way down, will be getting them next. And just to segue from there, Frank Musanti had his hand up, and he works in retail. Frank, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I work at ShopRite in the deli, and we signed up, I believe, 2 weeks ago through HR And I'm sure that's going to be the same way for you guys as it was, because there was some kind of guideline where you sign up, and basically what happens is, as far as I know, a week ago might have been the last day to sign up so they could know how many doses to bring or stuff like that to send. HR is sending it to someone. I'm assuming it's the state or the COVID vaccine board or what Kathy said. And I'm sure that's how it's going to be done through everywhere. So basically you sign up, there's a sheet, or they send it out. So.
And Anne, thank you for being there for our children. It really means a lot. And I know I appreciate everything that you and all the teachers and the social workers and the nurses and the bus drivers.
And our custodial staff, they're wonderful. Staff, I mean, in all the schools, yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne.
Are there any hands up? I have a question here if I don't see any hands. Sorry, okay. Question from the chat. Is it true that no more bill proposals can be submitted in this session? And if so, can the governor submit a bill for this session? You want to start, Charlie?
Well, the answer is yes and yes.
You're a veteran.
The answer is yes and yes. So the deadline is passed for the submission of new bills by the members. Of course, everybody here familiar with a dummy bill? A dummy bill is a single title that has no underlying language, where language can be added later. So even though the deadline passes for a bill, for bill writing, it might come up a month down the road that a bill is needed in a particular committee. And those dummy bills will be incorporated where language would be put into the bill, and the committee would then be able to submit the bill. Of course, the governor's office is going to submit a number of bills across a number of committees that haven't yet come through the pipeline. But they will, as the governor's agenda is made clear through the legislation. So the short answer is yes. The date is passed. Yes, the governor can still submit bills.
And I think you'll see a lot of the governor's bills being submitted after his budget comes out. And Charlie certainly is more familiar with the number of years he's been up there, but my understanding is we'll see a lot of bills from the governor once he releases his budget that first week of February. And just as Charlie said, in each of our committees, committee bills can still be raised. So even though the time for legislators, as myself and Representative Ferraro, we cannot put any bills in, but committee bills could certainly still be raised. So I hope that answers your question. Do we have any other questions out there? Hi, Ray, nice to see you out there. Anyone else have questions for us? It's wonderful to see. I want to just get another one. It is really nice to see all of you there, and I thank you all for coming out. Is there any? Oh, Lisa Burns. Hi, Lisa. Oh, if you could unmute yourself, take yourself off mute.
There we go. This is Lisa.
Oh, Lisa, you look very lovely tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Hi,
yes. I just dyed my hair. Anyways, I have a question about a bill, HB 5531, I believe it is. Its author is Jillian Gilchrist.
Okay.
And what she wants to do is she wants to add an excise tax to firearm ammo in order to fund gun violence research. And I'm wondering, well, number one, I'm in complete opposition to that. And for a number of reasons. One of them is that, you know, there's already a law that states you must have a concealed carry permit in order to even buy ammo, which automatically means that only law-abiding citizens can buy ammo, which means that non-law-abiding citizens cannot legally buy it. All right, so basically a law like that is or a bill like that, which could become a law, is basically punishing us. All right. And I was wondering, you know, maybe if they want to raise money to research gun violence, maybe they should tax the offenders who, you know, have to pay legal fees, tax their legal fees to pay for that, because then, you know, it's kind of the people who are committing these criminal acts are actually paying for the research, which in my eyes would be better. And you'd be, if you're going to punish somebody, you should at least punish somebody who has something to do with it. That's all for me. Thanks.
Thank you. I was just trying to look to see if I had printed. I have a list of a number of the bills, but I don't have that one. But you did say House Bill 5531. Charlie, Representative Farr, I don't know if you recall, but this sounds like a bill that may have come up last year.
It did.
This individual has tried to put this bill through before.
Yes.
It didn't get any traction last time. And I don't know, a lot of people are anxious to see this bill go through again this time. So I think we got bigger fish to fry. We got much bigger fish to fry here in this session. You know, we have to.
I would agree with that as well.
We have to recover from this pandemic. We have to get our businesses back up and running. We've got to be able to save some of our businesses that are on the brink. Get our people vaccinated, get our kids back in school, get sports up and running. There's so much more to do in the state of Connecticut that I do think the priority is going to be a little bit different than that.
Thank you very much, Representative Ferraro, and it's nice to see you.
Same here, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have a question for us? I do want to remind everyone that's still on the call, a few people have left us, that to sign up for our newsletters by going through each of our websites. And we will also be having more town halls. We'd like to try to do it once a month, and always welcome each of you to join us. Mr. Winnick, you have your hand up?
Yes. I'd like to know, what is the progress, if any, being made on property tax reform at the legislature? I know there have been several proposals, one on uniformity of tax rates on motor vehicles at one time, no matter what town you live in, possibly just dropping the tax on motor vehicles, adding an extra tax on homes over a certain amount. Where do you see any of that happening in the current session, or is that just going to get kicked down the road?
I've only seen one bill at this point. Doesn't mean there's not more out there, but I did see Senator Mooney's bill where he was asking for a 1% in state income tax or state mill rate, or one mill rate increase on residential and business properties over, I think, $300,000. I don't know if that bill is going to catch on, if it's going to make its way through, but that's the only bill that I've seen at this point. I don't know, Kathy, have you seen any other property tax bills?
There was one that I saw in the Senate. I don't recollect the number. I really was just scanning through them, but I'm not really sure. You know, one of our priorities, I know for both of us, is these what I call nonsense bills. I mean, they really are nonsense bills, and they're just going to get put on the backs of our taxpayers. And that's what we will be fighting against as hard as we can to make sure we want to make Connecticut affordable for people to live. Today on the news, I heard Connecticut is in the top 10 of the worst states to retire in. They're eight on that list. Number 8. It's crazy. You know, so I know I will fight as hard as I can against these silly bills that just open your wallet and watch your money fly out. You know, there were some I think gasoline bills proposed. There's a lot of different ones. I don't know if I showed you my folder, it is this thick of bills that were filed. It's too early to determine what will get a public hearing and what won't. And we will watch that very closely. And again, I know I said it before, I just say it again, that just reach out to Representative Ferraro or myself, and we can always continue to update or go to our websites, and we will do the best to keep you apprised of where those bills are going. I think in the next few weeks, now that the bills are submitted, we'll start to see a lot more action. And as I said earlier in the evening, our first public health public hearing is Monday. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. That'll be our first public hearing on Zoom. Actually, it's really not technically, it is our first public hearing on Zoom. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So I thank you for the question, Mark. I made a note of that.
The funny thing is that prior, when the session first started, leadership on both sides of the aisle requested that legislators keep the number of bills that they submitted to a minimum because of all the, COVID and everything else that we're dealing with. And yet, as Kathy indicated, there's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bills in the pipeline. And so I don't know how many bills we're actually going to get through this session, but I would guess that the number of bills that we get through, I think by the end of the session is going to be less this time than normal because of the circumstances that we're in and the inability to meet in person and all the Zoom meetings that we have to have and how difficult it's going to be to do public hearings by Zoom. I would imagine our public hearings are going to go a day and a half because, with that many people wanting to get on, it's going to be very difficult to do it in a timely fashion.
And to follow up on that, regardless of a position on a bill, what's most important to me is that everyone gets their chance to speak to any bill. That's the process is just ginormous to me. So in our chat room are our email addresses. It's kathy.kennedy@housegop.ct.gov and charles.ferraro, and the rest is the same at housegop.ct.gov. Sorry, there's a typo in there.
We definitely want to hear from you throughout the session because our constituents guide us as we make our decisions on these bills. And sometimes I'll get a bill that almost means nothing to me personally. And then I'll get a rash of constituents writing me and telling me their concerns about the bill. And then I can represent those concerns. So please feel free to write us, call us, contact our legislative assistants, whatever is necessary.
And we can guide you through any difficulties you may have, and hopefully. But just know that we are here for you, and we want to be your voice. We will be your voice in Hartford. So as Representative Ferraro said, please continue to reach out to us. It's very important, and it means a whole lot to us. I don't see any
more questions.
So I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone for coming on today. I care deeply about everyone's health and each of you. So it's important that we will get through this together somehow. I think those words "we're in this together" somehow flew out the window a long time ago, but I know Representative Ferraro and we are here for you. So please reach out to us.
I want to echo Ms. Kennedy's comments, and that we wish you a healthy post-COVID life, because as our COVID vaccinations roll out, as we get through the summer and into the fall, we're going to start to see life returning more and more to normalcy. And we've got a lot of catching up to do. I know I do, and I know many of you feel the same way. I've got grandchildren I haven't seen in a long time, and I'm looking forward to being able to do that. And the best thing we can do in the meantime is to stay safe, wear our masks, keep our distance, do what's necessary to get through this thing as safely as we can and as quickly as we can.
So on that note, stay safe, everyone, stay healthy, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.